Thank you to one of our favorites, Policy Genius, for sponsoring this week's video.
Summer begins this month, and you know what that means. It's time to save on life insurance. That way you'll have a bigger budget for all your favorite summer activities.
Policy Genius makes it easy to compare quotes from over a dozen top insurers, all in one place. If something did, in fact, ever happen to me, heaven forbid, the least I could do for those that I love and those that depend on me is have life insurance in place.
If someone relies on you financially, whether it be a child, an aging parent, or a business partner, life insurance is a must. Policy Genius makes it easy to get life insurance done. You can save 50% or more on life insurance by comparing quotes with Policy Genius, and you could save $1,300 or more per year on life insurance by using Policy Genius to compare policies.
Just recently, I went to policygenius.com. I compared the life insurance policy that I've had for a few years now to what I could have even at my age as I'm getting older. And what I found was I can still get great coverage, and it ended up being less than what I was paying already. And in literally minutes, I was able to get all of this done and get my new life insurance policy started.
Head to policygenius.com/redpoppyranch to get started now.
Calm down. Let's get you out. Easy, easy. Come on. Put your foot. Come on. Come on. An Englishman and a Scotsman walk into a bakery. The Englishman then leans over to the Scotsman and says, "Watch this, I'm going to teach you something." Before the baker can see what's going on, the Englishman swipes 3 cookies, puts those 3 cookies in his left pocket. About that time, the baker turns around and he says, "How can I help you guys?" The Scotsman thinks about it for a second. Then the Scotsman says to the baker, "I'd like to show you a magic trick." The baker says, "Absolutely." The Scotsman asks for 1 cookie. The baker hands him 1 cookie. The Scotsman eats the cookie, opens his mouth, shows the baker that it's gone, asks for a 2nd cookie. The baker hands him a 2nd cookie. The Scotsman eats that cookie, opens his mouth, shows him that it's gone, then he asks for a 3rd cookie. The Scotsman then eats the 3rd cookie, opens his mouth, shows the baker that it's gone. The baker says, "Enough. Where are my cookies?" The Scotsman says, "Check the Englishman's left pocket." Someone shared that joke with us a while back on our Instagram page, and I would love to give credit to that person, but I don't know who it is. Someone suggested last night that maybe I lighten up a little bit in our videos. Maybe stop being so serious. Share a joke once in a while. I thought that was a great idea. If you have a funny, clean joke that you think will work in one of our videos, submit it on Instagram. If we use that joke, not only will we give you a shout out, but we're going to send you a hat or a shirt of your choice wherever you are in the world. I love to laugh and I love a good joke. If you've got one, hit us up on Instagram. Maybe we'll use it in one of our videos. The next big project that I'm really itching to get started on is the roof on the house. But before I start a project that big, I really want to get the little tiny off-grid cabin completely finished. All that I have left to do is to get all the tongue and groove hung and installed. Then Cedar and I will do a little bit of cleanup. Then we'll decorate it, start using it, and the rest is history. And then I don't have to think about it too much anymore. But I'm making an effort not to start any major projects until other smaller projects are finished. So this entire week, all that I did was work on that little cabin. The tongue and groove that I picked up a few weeks ago from the sawmill in one of the neighboring towns has ended up being pretty low quality, but I kind of knew this going into it. The question I'm struggling with is how much of this can I use and how much of it will turn into firewood. To get tongue and groove to look right and to work right, it really needs to be pretty high quality. It needs to be straight, without too many imperfections. And again, all of this tongue and groove that I have is just not that. So what I'm doing here is separating the good from the bad, leaving the bad down here at the shop, then taking the good up to the cabin. And I'm trying to save a little bit of time by doing that down here. Even with all of the imperfections in the tongue and groove, I love the way the place is coming together. But I need to cut in this access to the loft, which is where we will sleep when we're up here using it. The opening will be about 20 inches by about 30 inches, and it'll be a little bit snug, but it will serve its purpose. I drove down and picked up two 2x6 by 12s and four 2x4 by 8 studs, and it cost me $86 and change. Now I can sit here and complain about the high prices of lumber and the lower quality lumber that I'm having to use because of the high prices, or I could just simply go to work and make the best of what I have to work with and get the tiny cabin finished up. The pitch on the tiny cabin is almost exactly 45 degrees, and it's a bit of a pain to install the tongue and groove this way, but I'm going to make it work. And I'm going to get this portion of the tiny cabin completely finished up so I can move on to other things. Initially, what I found using the tongue and groove is because the wood had twists in it and because there were imperfections, it was very difficult to get the tongue to go into the groove and lock up the way that it was supposed to. So I'm having to reconsider how I'm going to make this work.
Okay, what do you think? Which one should we get him?
This one.
This one? Let's see. Try it on. How's it fit?
If it fits for you, it probably doesn't fit that. Just my ears are sticking out.
You're not supposed to shove it that far in your head. How many years in a row have I done this for you?
All of them.
As long as you can remember. 20-something years. Your favorite cake?
German chocolate.
German chocolate.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Don't do that.
Boom!
Don't! Y'all don't do it. I'm not doing it. Everyone's gonna.
Yeah, it was before your birthday.
Okay, ready?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Dad. Happy birthday to you.
I didn't say it.
You look like a monkey and you smell like.
That's me. Thank you. After fighting these few pieces of tongue and groove, I finally concluded that what I would do is take my table saw and cut one of the grooves off the back of the tongue and groove boards. So more or less, instead of being tongue and groove, it's now some sort of a lap siding. Once I figured this out, all of a sudden I started to get some things done. Because the back groove is now gone, I'm basically able to lay the boards on top of each other, straighten out the twists as I go, and make way more of this wood usable. But it was still a constant challenge. Once I get the loft completely finished up, I will probably use a quarter round or some sort of a trim piece where I can hide some of the gaps in the corners, because no matter what I did, there was still some places that needed something. So installing some quarter round will have to solve that problem. If I had worked nonstop on the little cabin, I should have been done by now. But because I was always letting other projects take precedence, and then on top of that, Mother Nature said, take a break over winter. So now while the weather's nice, I want to get the place finished up. But I have a bad habit of starting new projects before finishing. And in the future, I'm going to work hard not to do this. I finally went down and brought the table saw up to the little cabin so I could cut the little grooves off the back of all the boards much faster and be able to do it right here on site.
straight cruising, headed for bruising, watching out for number one. You gotta slow down, look around you, son. Today is just today and not tomorrow. Where you're going, you can rest your head. Where you're going, brightness looks big. Where you're going, truth cannot be hid. You gotta get going. Easy now. You gotta get going. Easy now. Be hard working so you can be deserving of the rest that you are given. You gotta slow down and look around you, son. Give a lot and live a little. Work with what you got. Where you're going, you can rest your head. Where you're going, brightness looks big. Where you're going, truth cannot be hid. You gotta get going. Easy now. You gotta get going. Easy now. Get along, give a hand, sleep heavy, be the man. Just there, where you are, do something, be the star. You gotta get going. Easy now. You gotta get going. Easy now.
Every time I drive over to the sawmill and pick up lumber, I drive past that little cabin and the little outbuildings and the windmill that I just showed. And a couple of months back, I finally stopped, took a hard look at it, as I've done a number of times before, and it's very obvious that whoever built these buildings knew what they were doing. The main house is a log cabin that was done in a dovetail fashion, which takes some skill. The other buildings that were built to match the main house turned out perfect as well. And over the years that I've stopped by and looked at this place, I've most definitely been influenced. And hopefully one day real soon, we will have a similar log cabin at our place. In the meantime, I need to get the tiny cabin finished. Every single time I come up here to work at the cabin, I either bump deer or turkeys or even an elk. And if you paid attention a week or two ago, we had a nice bull moose wander through our property as well. There's always wildlife wandering around up here. Once the cabin is finished, one of the things that I look forward to is sitting on the front porch and observing nature without the hum of a generator. But using the table saw to cut that back groove off of the tongue and groove made a whole lot more of this wood usable than what I initially intended on using. So that's definitely a good thing. In my mind, it's always hard to know what to do with this little piece of property right here, because I can see that there's a whole lot of trees that need to be thinned out. But I also love how thick it is, so I'm a bit torn. But I can always tell the big, healthy maple trees that have been established for a long time and that haven't been fighting for nutrients, they always do better. They always grow taller, and they seem to be much more healthy. All right, these are castrating bands. All of the goats we're not using them to castrate them. We're going to put these bands on the baby goats' horns. All of their horns are now big enough that it's time. These bands should stay on, which will cut the circulation off to their horns. And over the next 6 weeks or so, their horns will just fall off. We've done this with a couple of our other goats, and so we know it works. The big white goat is the only one we haven't been able to get her horns to fall off, because she has figured out how to rub the bands against something, anything, the fence or whatever, and break those bands off. But the babies, we need to get rid of their horns. So grab the brown one right there. Because we lost a baby goat last year to disbudding, we've decided not to do it anymore. We've decided to band their horns and let their horns fall off naturally, which seems to be much safer for the goats. The ones that have horns know they have horns and they use them accordingly, and the ones that don't have horns are victims to the ones that do. So for this reason, we prefer them all to not have horns. Got her, come here. Don't you hit me in the face. No.
No!
Okay, hold on to her. She's gonna try and back up. Hold on to her. On top of that, the babies will occasionally get stuck in the fences, which is definitely not good for them. So this is way better. In my mind, this is way better than disbudding. We don't want our goats to have horns. As you saw, our goat one of the baby goats got caught in the fence the other day. They very easily can die. So we're gonna try the bands. The big white goat, she's the only one that we haven't been able to get this to work on. I could use some tie wire, which I may use at some point, but that's the idea. If we're gonna milk these goats, which that's the plan, we do not want them to have horns. You let me know you want to take it off? She doesn't like it. But better this. Yeah, she doesn't like it. She's letting me know she doesn't like it. This week I read online that Google reported a 2,500% increase in the number of people that are searching the phrase, "Is the economy about to crash?" Now, I don't typically pay a whole lot of attention to things like that, but when I see that the average person, like myself, is thinking that something may be in the air, I'm more inclined to pay attention to that than I am to any news source. It seems that all of a sudden, people feel like something's in the air. To me, it feels like 2007 all over again. Record prices for real estate, multiple offers, people selling their home for more than they were asking. But I more than remember what happened shortly after that, when the housing market collapsed. I don't live in fear and I can't predict the future. But Cedar and I made a decision a long time ago that no matter what happens, we would do our best not to be affected by it. The number one way that we've avoided this is by avoiding debt if possible and being very picky about what we spend our money on. But when consumer spending seems to be tightening up, and like I said, the average person is concerned that something is about to change, to me that's a pretty good indication that something may be coming. Rather than getting too excited about this, we'll continue to live our lives the way that we have. And we've tried to do this by preparing for things that we can control and not worrying a whole lot about the things that we can't. Then we'll hope for the best, but prepare for whatever we think may be coming. Statistically, we're overdue for a market reset, but who really knows what's ahead of us? Living in fear has never been a comfortable place for me. Rather, we'll continue to strive to live a sustainable life. Then we'll make an effort to produce what we can here at the ranch, hoping someday, maybe, just maybe, we can produce enough food to minimize just how much we depend on the outside world. But this has always been our goal. We've always had a desire to live up close and personal with our food. I've talked about being 1 degree away from our food, meaning if we didn't grow it, cook it, or harvest it, then we know the person that did. And my hope is in the not too distant future, this is how we live our life, that we are living in complete harmony with that principle. But it might take a little while to figure that out. Either way, I don't mind at all. Just can't help but cry. I got a lot done. I've worked on the cabin the entire week up here. It's Friday night. I'm exhausted. Sitting like that kills my hips and my knees. So tomorrow I'm gonna get up here and finish the other end, do some trim work around the windows. And then all I have left to do is a little bit of detail work. I'm gonna have to use some cord around to make that stuff look good. But I want to get this, as far as the carpentry's concerned, I want to get everything done up here so I can focus 100% on the house. I don't want to start the roof on the back of the house until this is totally done. So I'm hoping tomorrow I can get up here and get it done. And then next week I can start with some of the fun stuff. dogs. Vandor, you need to go outside. Go ahead, buddy. No, Ruby. You gotta wait your turn. After I cut the groove off the back of the wood, everything went much, much faster after that. I like the look of tongue and groove enough that I would use it in a house, but I don't know if this tongue and groove here would be good for that. Like I said, it's pretty rough, but up here in the little cabin, it's perfect. There's probably about 30% of the tongue and groove down at the shop that wasn't even good enough to bring up here. But I think what I've decided to do is to run it through my table saw and mill it into individual pieces that I can use on the floor. That's about the only other thing I can think of doing with it. Cutting both the tongue and groove off and using the good wood that would be left for the flooring up here in the cabin. But even still, there's going to be quite a bit of waste from this wood. I will cut that wood up into pieces that I can use up here at the cabin, in the wood stove, and whatever's left down at the shop. We'll do the same thing and add it to our firewood pile, as we know that we can never have too much firewood. The first couple days of next week, the tiny cabin will be completely finished. We'll get it cleaned out. Then we'll move on to the biggest project of the summer, the roof on the house. I am done with all of the walls. Now I'm going to do the deck up here with the same tongue and groove. Once the deck is finished, I'll install the last little trim piece right there, and then it's basically all done. Although in the corners I'm going to put some cord around or something, just because some of the little gaps don't look great to me. But just about done. This has been a bit of a miserable job just because there's just not much room to work. Now my conflict is, as I install the tongue and groove that I have up here, at some point I'm going to have a hard time getting more up here. And so I have to make sure I have enough up here, but not too much, because once the deck is done, I'm going to have a hard time getting stuff out. So anyway, we'll see what I can figure out here. I better go turn the generator on first. Oh. One-way conversations. So if history does in fact repeat itself, we probably should be prepared for anything that has happened in our past, whether it be natural disasters or a market reset. I can remember like it was yesterday, the owner of the plumbing company that I was working for telling me that the real estate market of 2005, 6, and 7 would not last. He was quite a bit older than me. He was quite a bit more experienced than me. I also remember not believing him. I remember thinking that the equity that I had in my house would continue to climb and climb and climb. So when the market finally had enough and we began to watch many of our close friends lose everything that they had worked very hard to accumulate, I knew I should learn from that experience and make sure that I did everything I possibly could to not be vulnerable when something like that happened. So, as uncertain as these times might be, I firmly believe that there are things that we can do to position ourselves where we can avoid a lot of challenges if we simply pay attention to what has happened before. Again, like I said, I hope and I pray that the economy and the interest rates and all of these other things that we rely on to make our lives work, I hope they continue to rage on. It wasn't that long ago that the great state of Texas was dealing with weather that it had not seen in over 100 years. Many people were out of their homes. Many people had frozen and broken pipes. They had no way to heat their homes. They had no generators. They had no gasoline set aside. Maybe taking steps to have some of those things around will ensure that we're the ones handing out our help instead of hoping for somebody to help us. On that note, hopefully, next week, I've got part of the roof torn off the house. I'm almost done with the platform upstairs, but I'm just about out of tongue and groove. And my batteries are all going dead, so it's a good time to call it a day. I'll get back up here on Monday, finish all the trim work, and then Cedar's gonna help me get this place spick and span so I can finish the floor. And then it's done, and then I can dive into the house. That's the big thing, is to get this out of the way and finished so I can get all my tools down there and get working on the house. But I'm looking forward to it. It's pretty cool. This getting the tongue and groove up changes the whole thing. So I'm excited to be able to use the place.